Have you ever been given information that you already knew, but formatted in a different way to just change your perspective in an instant? Well, I think that's what just happened to me. I'll explain what happened as we explore. One of the things I like about this community is there's a whole lot of people out there that I think are a whole lot smarter than me. I bring some information to you, partly from my own observation, well, a lot of it, most of it actually, but there's a lot that I get from the members of this community. And one of the such members sent me a chart, and it was really a table that showed the same data that I knew all along in a different way about gold that I think is just mind-blowing. And I think it'll blow your mind too. It'll give you confidence that stacking gold and holding gold is the right thing to do, even if, and especially if you are a hardcore silver stacker and own no gold or very little gold. I think these are the times to consider adding gold to your portfolio, no matter what your viewpoint is on silver or any other precious metal out there. Summit Metals happens to have some really good deals on certain gold products out there, so check them out. Summit Metals is really excelled in customer service and growth over the past year. They're relatively a newcomer, but they are making a resounding impact in the community. And it's amazing to see. So elevate your wealth with Summit Metals over at summitmetals.com. So what is this information? Well, we know if you look at a chart of gold over the past 50 years, 20 years, it really doesn't matter what time frame you look at it, gold has done very well, no question about it. And we know, as I have articulated on this channel many times, that since 2022, we have seen an increase in the amount of gold holdings by central banks. That is what has really provided the foundation for gold's bull run. And it's not done yet. That's right. And if we look back through the course of history, well, it's good to take a look at what has happened over the elapsed period of time measured in days compared to how far gold has increased. We're talking about in $500 increments. That's right. I'm going to express this to you from the very beginning of when the first time that silver's price was adjusted upwards. Well, I guess it was technically the second, because I think it went from $20.67 an ounce, which is represented by this coin that you see right here. This is a coin that very well could have been, or maybe escaped confiscation from the United States government back during Executive Order 6102. This is a $20 gold piece that weighs 0.96 ounces, has 0.96 ounces of actual gold weight in it. It actually weighs more than an ounce when you take into account the copper that is used in the coin as well. But after that confiscation happened, well, guess what happened? Well, they moved the price up to $31 and then $35 an ounce. $35 an ounce. And it's crazy. And that was the time when it was still fixed. And it was illegal to own gold. Well, and then in December the 31st, 1974, that was the last day that it was prohibited to own gold. Because January 1st, 1975, you were allowed to own gold. And maybe you would have bought one of these. This represents the next phase, the Krugerrand. And of course, there was no other governments minting a 1-ounce bullion coin. It was the Krugerrand and the Krugerrand only, and the 1-ounce variety that you could have as bullion. Still very popular today, and they can be had at a relatively inexpensive price. And then also overlapping that period as well too, as is the Canadian maple leaf, which came out in 1979, and then is still minted today. Both those coins are. So from $35 to $500. That's our first time frame. That time that has elapsed in days is 4,127. That's a long period of time for sure. But notwithstanding, that's a big increase in price from that time period, given what we went through inflation, a pretty bad inflation period. In fact, the next level of inflation that we've seen since then just happened recently, in the last couple of years here. So we're talking $35 And that bout of inflation got us up to $500. That's a big increase from 35 to 500, given what the value of the dollar was at that time. So let that sink in a bit. That's a big jump. But 4,127 days is a fairly long time, too. So and that's when the maple leaf came on board. And then also we saw the maple leaf. It's interesting that this coin, it's really hard to see the reflectivity of the gold in it, even though it's 4/9 pure gold. The light just does not pick it up very well on this camera, so it always looks dark when I show it here. It's understandable why the Krugerrand would look dark because it's got a balance of copper in it. And then you had the American Gold Eagle, and this is the Type 1 variety, and it came out as well during this period of time when gold was under $500 an ounce during that 4,127 days. And several others came out. But since then, when it got to $500, then we saw it move another $500 increment. That took even longer, twice as long, actually. It took 9,251 days to move from $500 to $1,000 an ounce. And why is that? Well, inflation was somewhat muted during that point in time, and there was economic prosperity during that time. Great shifts in development across the dot-com boom and everything else, and it just that was the beginnings of that, moving into that direction. So we saw it move to $1,000 an ounce from 500. That's doubling in price, but it took 9,251 days to do so. Then we'd take the next $500 from $1,000 to $1,500 an ounce. You remember that well. This channel was born during that time frame, and we saw the price move up that much in 1,131 days. And the beginning of other bullion coins started to make their way through. The Perth Mint, and the other mints have produced their own versions of much more selection out there of bullion coins to choose from. That took 1,131 days, a relatively short period of time to make that $500 move, because that was during the time of the economic crisis, and we also saw a bump up in gold's price at the beginning of the economic crisis for sure. But then it was in the next 3,397 days when it really took effect, when we saw gold get up to over $2,000 an ounce, close to it, during that economic crisis. Of course, these are averaged here through what happened during that time frame, but $1,500 to $2,000 an ounce overall. That took 3,397 days to occur. And then we saw it move up dramatically. Of course, some of that as well moved into the pandemic period again, where we moved from $2,000 to $2,500 an ounce. And we remember those days well, when it stayed regularly above $2,000 an ounce. And then, to think about $2,400 an ounce silver or gold is remarkable to think about. And then it moved to $2,500 an ounce. That took 1,276 days to occur, which is the second shortest time span for that kind of activity to happen, with 1,131 days that we saw before being that. That's $500 increment movements. Of course, $500 in this time frame is worth a whole lot less than the $500 during the first time frame or the second time frame, which are the longest amounts, because a dollar went further back in the day. That is the first item of perspective that I have on this that really changes everything, I think, when you think about gold, how it's remained constant, but the value of the dollar has not. It has fallen to where these time frames seem to be getting shorter and shorter, as to be noted by what happened here in the last year or so. 407 days it took gold to reach from $2,500 an ounce to $3,000 an ounce. Those are the periods of high inflation, and with the central banks around the world accumulating gold, especially after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So that is what we're looking at there. 407 days to reach from $2,500 an ounce to $3,000 an ounce. Amazing. But you know what? All that being said, A 1 ounce of gold is still 1 ounce of gold. We measure our wealth in ounces, not so much in dollars, precisely because of this reason, of these time spans here, this time frame. You know, they're uneven comparatively between the different sections, but a lot of that has to do with what kind of economic stress that the world has been under, not just the United States, but the world has been under during that time span. Now, this last one is going to blow you away, as it did me. From $3,000 to just right at $3,500 an ounce, it took only 39 days. That's right, 39 days. Wow, crazy. And so, as he says, I think the days of the 4-digit with a comma, days are long gone. And so, yes, that's what we're seeing here with gold. Amazing how quickly it is moving up in price. Now, obviously, it has pulled back off of that $3,500 an ounce scale again. There seems to be some pretty strong resistance there. But you know what? It wouldn't take but just a couple of different actions to happen. In fact, we're seeing the geopolitical stage shift yet again with Russia and Ukraine as I record this video. And we very well could revisit that $3,500 mark again soon, very soon, with the geopolitical tensions tightening up again after this latest move in what's known as, or what Russia perceives to be, the Russian Pearl Harbor event. So there you go. Wow. That is just mind-blowing in my view. Let me know what your thoughts are. When you think about how long it took gold to rise $500 an ounce within this time frame, it really puts everything in a perspective. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.